I tried Airbnb for 3 months, and this is an honest review on how my Airbnb has went, and if you should still be getting an Airbnb this year, if you should be listing your property on Airbnb, or if you should focus on other things like wholesaling, flipping, and just normal rentals. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Alec. If you are new, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. We talk about anything like real estate, Airbnb, I guess, just whatever, etc. topics. And in this video, we're gonna be covering how my new Airbnb listing has done after having it listed on Airbnb for the first 3 months. So I closed on this house actually in April, and I made some videos talking about that. It was a super creative deal where I, did like subject to some seller financing. I put some money into repairs, and then I put on Airbnb. And this is in Tampa, Florida, where there's no regulations or anything. So just threw it on there. It didn't need a license or anything, which is super nice. I had it on Airbnb like the last few days of April. I actually got my first booking like the last few days when I first listed it. So I had one booking in April for maybe like $200 or something, nothing crazy. But I'm really only going to be looking at May, June, and July. I'm recording this and uploading this in September, but the reason for that is because in the month of August, I didn't have it on Airbnb. And we're going to get into that later on, but there is a reason for that. It wasn't on Airbnb at all in the month of August, and actually some of July it wasn't on Airbnb either. So this is really just getting a sample size of those first 3 months and what happened and if I'm still doing Airbnb or not. So to run my Airbnb, first of all, I use a few different softwares. I actually have them all in my link tree and in the descriptions. The main one I use is called Hospitable, and Hospitable is really cool because it's like a centralized hub where you can do like inbox and you can do like, just everything management for your Airbnb. And then you could also sync in Vrbo, Airbnb, and everything. So I have my property on Vrbo and Airbnb, so it makes it easier so it doesn't like block calendars, and then I could do inboxes. I could also do a lot of like automations, which is super key. If you are getting into Airbnb, automations are insane. And like, I know people that do Airbnb and don't have automations, and it blows my mind because like, automations saves you so much time. This is my May calendar, which was my first full month on Airbnb. So let's pull this up. As you can see, I had my first booking on the 3rd. I didn't have a booking those first, 2-3 days. And then I had a booking for like that weekend. And then after that, it kind of just kept getting booked. I actually had another booking from the 16th to the 18th. I had a booking, but then they canceled. So I got some of the money from that cancellation. So that ended up working out. So in total, that was my first full month. And as you could see, it had a pretty solid occupancy. Like almost like a 70-80% occupancy like that first month, which is like really good. We're going to pull over to the next platform, which is called Rentastic. If you own properties and you are doing bookkeeping or you have a bookkeeper, you need to stop and you need to get on Rentastic. I use them for my property and all my other future properties, and it's a complete game changer when it comes to like bookkeeping for investment property. As you can see, in May I brought in $2,000 and change profit for that month, and that's not exact numbers, just because of like that first month some things got messed up with some payments going to different bank accounts, but that's like a rounded number. So I brought in about $2,100 that first month, and my expenses were higher because there were some things I needed to take care of. There was some last minute things I needed to add to the house. So in total, that first month I cash flowed $400. That's like pretty good for an Airbnb with no credibility, nothing. It wasn't rented out in the best month of Airbnb, and it did $400 cash flow. June was a crazy month because as you could see, I had like a 90% occupancy in June. Like June was my like insane month. So we had one little gap here in the middle between the 6th and the 9th. We had nobody there. But other than that, we had guests in the beginning, we had guests in the middle, and then I had one guest stay from the 11th to the 30th. So he stayed that whole time. I completely forgot about the Airbnb during that period. Like that Airbnb was on autopilot and it was amazing. That was like one of my favorite months. And like going into my second month, getting that booking with the guy who stayed that whole time, I was like, man, this is amazing. Like I love these long stays. So we're gonna go over to Rentastic. My profit for the month of June was $2,500. It's really good. And my expenses were way less than May because I didn't have as many like initial things to buy. It was about $1,100. In total, my cash flow was $1,400. And I just want to say that's not like exact numbers. There's some other things that are related to that kind of factor in to reduce it, but you can see that this house is cash flowing really well. Now let's go into July. So it's like, okay, May did well the first month, June did well. Now let's see July. This is my July calendar. As you can see, it looks a lot differently. So we had that one booking at the beginning, then we went like that whole midweek with no bookings, and then I had 2 more bookings back to back for one night and then another one night booking, and then that's it for the month. So you're like looking at this like, what happened? Like, how does this Airbnb go from a 90% occupancy in June to like a 5% occupancy or like whatever it is? It's pretty crazy to think about. And the reason for that is I audibled.
There we go. Hey, lava rage, lava rage. Yeah.
So what I did was I saw in June, I'm like, man, this guy stayed for 3 weeks. I want to get more people staying like that in my house. Like, I like having this house cash flow without having to think about it. And if you're watching this, you're probably like, well, why not just rent it out long-term rental? Well, if you see those numbers, 2,300, 2,500, whatever, this house on a long-term rental is renting for 1,600 max. So we're talking about $1,000 more in cash flow between a long-term rental and a short-term rental. It's pretty crazy to think about. Almost $1,000, $900 difference. That's a lot of money. And that's why when you're, buying properties, you need to analyze these deals. People just putting properties long-term rental and not looking at all the options are really holding themselves back. So here's what I did in July. So I had these bookings and then I put my house on what's called Furnished Finder. Furnished Finder is a place where you can have traveling nurses and traveling professionals actually stay in the house. So I had somebody reach out to me on Furnished Finder. They wanted to stay in the house and we actually negotiated some terms. I think I had it on Furnished Finder for like $2,500, which was kind of like what the Airbnb was bringing in. They negotiated me down to $2,300 a month. On July 13th, I had a guest book in there and then we prorated that month. So it was like $2,300 because that's what they were paying divided by 31 times, however many days they stayed. In the month of July, I brought in almost $2,500 again. Even with the medium term rental that was paying a little bit less, but because of the occupancy and because it was booked, and arguably one of the slowest months of Airbnb, although my house is right next to like bush gardens and stuff, which I think helps, but it's still one of the slower months. It brought in really good money. And then if we look at the expenses, we see the expenses are like $1,300 to $1,400. So we're talking about like $1,000 of cash flow that month. And I just want to preface by saying that's not exact numbers. There's more stuff that doesn't get calculated that like I pay like off, site kind of like cash and stuff. But it's around that. Let's say like $800 to $1,000 cash flow. So the guest stayed from July 13th to August 31st. So that means the whole month of August, that lady was there, and I literally didn't think about this house at all. It was amazing. I didn't even think of, I'm like, oh, I forgot I even own a house there. I haven't thought about this house at all. And then my expenses, of course, were a lot less because I'm not hiring cleaners every single time. I'm not circulating through cleaners. So it was $800, and that was pretty much just like my mortgage, the utilities, and all those normal expenses. And this is during a time period, this summer 2023, where everybody was like, Airbnb is crashing, sell your Airbnbs, Airbnb sucks, there's too many Airbnbs, Airbnb is overinflated. Like, everybody's saying all this stuff, but look at these numbers. Is Airbnb dead? Or are these people just not buying Airbnbs in good areas, or are they not managing Airbnbs well? Because my Airbnb is absolutely killing it. And not only am I doing Airbnb, I'm also doing medium-term rentals. The lady that stayed in the house, she just moved out, a week or two ago, whatever it was. But she stayed there. I didn't even think about the house, and I was getting the same amount that I would get on Airbnb without having to stress about cleaners or repairs or maintenance. I have recorded other videos where I talked about like a drunk driver breaking my mailbox, and like I've had like contractors do stuff to my house, and I've had I'm gonna record another video about a guest like shooting a gun through my house. Like, that happened before. And that's like a teaser for that video. But like, I've had some crazy stuff happen to my house. I've had cleaners quit mid-job. I've had cleaners not show up. And with these medium-term rentals, I'm not doing that at all. I'm not managing that. I don't care. Like, I'm like, yeah, the lady can stay in her house. I'm always a text away. She texts me, hey, how do I do this? Answer her, right? But like, most of the time, I'm just like, I don't care. Like, it's doing its thing. And then now in the month of September, I have it back on Airbnb, and I could show my calendar for that. Just to show you guys like what I'm looking at. Now my house is back on Airbnb. I didn't find another furnished finder for September, but I'm actually not gonna like actively look for a medium-term rental for these like winter months, because now we're getting into like the hot time of Airbnb. My house was renting for $80 to $100 a night over the summer. Now we're talking about $200 a night in like November, December. So I actually don't want a traveling nurse to stay in my house. I had one lady hit me up. She wanted to stay in my house from September until the end of February. So 6 months she wanted to stay in my house. And I had one booking for like mid-September. And like she wanted to move in the 1st September. And I'm not gonna be that guy and like cancel it on her. Like she booked it, first come, first serve. Like it is what it is, you know. That's not who I am to like cancel on people. And I was actually through Airbnb. It wasn't through Furnished Finder. I think it was gonna bring in like $2,200 a month, like net. So that would have been really good. And she was down to do it. She's like, I'll book it unseen. Like I'll do it. And I couldn't do it. I'm like, hey, you know, I could rent it to you like after September like 14th or something, but I can't rent it to you, you know, now. Like unfortunately I have a guest there. Like, you know, you could stay there for 2 weeks and move out for a weekend and come back if you want. I hope that makes sense how I explained it, but like I just couldn't do it. So that kind of sucked, but it's gonna work out because these winter months are gonna do really well. And as you can see, this house is already doing really well. If you just look at the Rentastic numbers, you could see how much it's cash flowing. This video is actually sponsored by Rentastic. I actually found out about Rentastic through one of my friends because like I was asking him for a bookkeeper. He told me, look into this program, Rentastic, that I use. So I looked into them. I like signed up for like a free trial. I was playing around with it, upgraded to the premium one, and like my mind was blown. I'm like, man, this is exactly what I needed because I paid for bookkeepers. Like I just got on Rentastic a month ago, but like May, June, July, I was paying, you know, I think $100 a month. I was paying for my bookkeeper to do the books on QuickBooks, and like I hate looking at QuickBooks. So like I never checked the books. And I would just like rely on him to do it, and sometimes he wouldn't, you know, it is what it is. So going on Rentastic completely changed the game. I actually reached out to them to sponsor this video because I like their program so much and I wanted to like set up an affiliate. So I do have a code for 20% off. I'll put it right here. It's Alec20 for $20 off. Also sign up through my link. It makes me look better because I'm bringing them business and like it doesn't look like just like a blank sponsorship, but like for real, I recommend this. I've told so many people about this. There's some really cool features with this, such as the transactions tab, which is a game changer in itself. So when you go on Rentastic, you link your bank accounts to Rentastic, and then every time you get a new credit card charge, a new bank account charge, income coming into the bank account, whatever it is, it tracks it, and then it puts it in the transactions tab. As you can see, my transactions tab is currently fully done, but it has, you know, different categories. It has advertising, bank fees, mortgage, lawn care. You can add in your own custom categories, and then it'll auto fill it in for you as well. You could, you know, set that up. That way you don't have to stress out about your books, because if you're like me, where you're maybe more on like the visionary side, less on like I don't care about systems, like just get me more deals, like let's call sellers and let's do deals, like you don't want to look at this. Like I hate looking at this stuff, and this has completely changed the game for me because I know that everything is being classified. Like I don't have this like nagging feeling in the back of my head where it's like, oh, I didn't do my bookkeeping, oh, is my bookkeeper doing his job? Like I know this system is doing it, and then it keeps track of it in a nice little charts I showed at the beginning where it's like the income and the expenses, and you can see exactly from like an overview how your property is doing. Another really cool thing is the rent estimates down here. The rent estimator is actually scary accurate. I put in my Airbnb before and it actually pumped out the exact number that I thought it would pump out. It's super accurate. There's a lot of other platforms like Bigger Pockets has one, and like Rentalizer has one, and they charge for it. And although Rentastic is like a free version and a paid version, but like the Rentalizer costs the same as what the Rentastic paid version is, but then it's like included in the Rentastic paid version, and you're also getting like the transactions tab, which is pretty much like worth the cost on its own because this isn't expensive. So like the rent estimator is almost like a free add-on. It's super good for wholesaling. It's also good for like analyzing deals. Like if you have a wholesale deal and you're like, I might want to keep this, and you're like, what could it rent for? Or you could send out to your buyers being like, hey, listen, like I'm wholesaling this house, I'm selling it for 200K. I know it could rent for at least 3K because they have this, accurate renting tracking system. Super cool little program there. I don't want to sound too salesy, but big fan of this program. I reached out to them for the sponsorship because I really want to plug them in, making sure my audience is, doing the right stuff to analyze and manage their properties. So check them out. Use my link so I look good when I'm sending them business. So it's like our sponsorship worked out with this guy. But yeah, no, just jokes aside, check them out for real. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's like a deal breakdown on my property, and this should show you that Airbnb is not dead. If somebody's telling you that, it's because they don't know what they're doing, they didn't buy in a good area, or they're just not running it correctly. So don't believe them. Do Airbnb if you think it's gonna work, if you analyze the area it's gonna work, if the price makes sense, if the cash flow makes sense. Don't be scared to do Airbnb. Make sure you look into the regulations first, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my other videos, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Are you still doing Airbnb this year? Are you running away from Airbnb? Is Airbnb dying? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.